Okay, what are we talking about this week? Culture. Which I'm assuming is just about chapter 8. I'm going to try and not dominate this conversation because Starbucks is big on its culture.
So is Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is like its own little culture. And yeah, I'm sure Starbucks is too. I think any company is its own culture. Truly, even smaller businesses. So.
I felt like symbols and like, especially like with language and story, like I felt like that really resonated with like Starbucks just because like we always have those coffee connects and like we have our own language. So it was definitely like, okay, this is very relatable.
Yeah. Well, even like when I was first hired, they talked about, rituals and things like that, like, and just language, like they were talking about calling employees associates. It literally was part of like, when you're first brought onto Starbucks, it's called First Sip now, but I used to teach a class called the Starbucks Experience. And it was all about, people would call it drinking the Kool-Aid class. And we're called partners. We're all called partners for a reason because we're all equal. And like we all use first names. I mean, even Roxanne, president of the company, we call her by her first name. They don't do titles and they don't do last names. So
I would say at like Mayo Clinic, there's kind of some assumptions, just because a lot of people just come in and when they're there, they always can't believe how nice everybody is. When they come through there, I mean, of course, I know a lot of people and people who work there say not everyone's nice, but we are to the patients at least. So, I mean, there's always like an assumption of, when you come to Mayo Clinic, it's supposed to be world-class medical care, top-notch, but also that, everyone that's there is kind of, they always make that comment of, everyone is so nice and everything. I used to always make a joke of, I said, oh, they put something in the air for us. So it's a medication that we breathe. But, it's kind of, you kind of notice that also, like, even like about a Starbucks, how, at 5 a.m. you could be going through the drive-thru at Starbucks and that person's happy and peppy and stuff, handing you your coffee, and you just want to like reach to the window and choke them and say, shut up, because like it's 5 a.m., but it's like, it is, it's uplifting, I mean, it's awesome in the morning, it's like, dude, I want to be you because I am not a morning person. That is amazing. So I'm like, those type of culture things, is pretty cool.
That's funny.
Casey, you mentioned like talking to other employees that were even like at an upper level and using their first names, you said?
yes.
Okay, so I guess someone earlier just said smaller companies have a culture too, and that's true. Where the company I worked at, I think I mentioned it in last week's discussion. It was like a classic Chevy thing, whatever. But I can also relate. In the morning, it's just like a routine. Every morning, because we're a close-knit company, you kind of know everybody on a personal level too. And just like, hey, good morning, such and such, like everybody's name, and it's a very personal thing, I guess. And then there's also something about symbolism too with your appearance. And I guess like we all kind of we're the same in a way. I guess at Starbucks, you guys have your uniforms. For us, we all have like the same matching polos. And we also refer to everybody, even the owner, by their first name. Like I never called him boss or owner or anything weird like that. It was just like more of a personal thing, which I thought was cool. And that was part of the culture of that small business aspect.
To piggyback on what you're saying, Nicholas, and what you said, Casey, like coaching wise, when I used to coach at the high school I coached, we started to introduce a different type of relationship with the kids, and instead of them calling us, hey, coach so and so by our last name, like for me it'll be like Coach Rodriguez. We told them, hey, just call me by my first name, but still keep that coach in there just to make sure that there's, what's it called? That there's power still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that to show that respect, that was the biggest thing. But minimize it, by having them call us by our first name. Now we're going into more of a friendship basis with them too at the same time. And this has actually helped the relationship between our coaches and players, because now players are like, okay, it's Coach Leo. It's not, oh shit, it's Coach Rodriguez. Like, I got to call him by his last name because I got to show him more respect. So at the same time, it's like a little game that we were playing, and it actually helped just the relationship between the young guys and us. Because, the young guys look at us like, oh, we're afraid of you guys. But in reality, we're also there to mentor you, to be your friends, to help you out. I've had times where players would call me on the phone and be like, hey, Coach Leo. It wasn't like, hey, Coach Rodriguez. And they would start talking to me about, hey, I just got to, I haven't been feeling good. Something's going on at home, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to do, et cetera. So going into those basic name bases, it's very important how you use it in a small business and big business, in a team, or, in groups overall too.
Yeah.
Well, I also think the using the first names also makes you more relatable. It makes you more approachable. It's like it brings down that positional power, the power distance, and helps build that trust, I think.
100%. And then,
Like, yeah, you still respect that they might be your manager, the owner of the company, but you also have that like personal aspect to it. It's personable.
Yeah. I think it's like once you get older and you understand, like when you're our age, we understand like, okay, that's my manager, period, but when you're dealing with, 15, 13, 14-year-old kids, some of them are almost turning 18, you still got to have that boundary. But again, minimizing the boundary by putting the first name. And I just want to say another thing too. It was with Nicola, I know how you were talking about creating that culture with it's called the uniforms. With us, it was the same thing. Like if a player had like a green sock on, green socks when everyone's supposed to have white and look nice, clean, and fresh. We didn't like that. We never let that kid play, and the reason being is just he's not part of the team. And we will make him wear that in order to make us seem as one, and making the bond stronger within the team, etc.
Ashley, were you going to say something?
I was, but it was
Sorry.
pretty much what you said. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
it was like kind of how you have to sometimes bring yourself down and meet people in the middle, and they have to bring themselves up. And it's just for like the respect sort of thing, and to maintain the culture that is, I am the person in charge and you're trusting me because I'm in charge, but I'm also trusting you to do like your end of things, and like working together but separately at the same time, because it works.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes you as a leader rely more on, when you remove the title aspect and the last name aspect and that positional power, which can be related to the legitimate power, it makes you rely more on the referent power, because you have to build that relationship to earn their respect, and they have to respect you because of who you are, not because you have a title or your last name.
That's true. And there's probably some people that you might not, you're like, you can call me Coach Leo, but maybe you don't tell that to one of the players because he hasn't built that with you yet. So once people do get that relationship with you, then you're like, hey, you can just call me Coach Leo, and then it like opens up like that trusting and that bonding that you have between both sides.
Yeah, like that was the other thing too. Like as soon as I went back to my high school for a bit, just to before I started working here at ASU, and just to see them, and everyone's like, oh, Coach Leo. I'm like, dude, I ain't your coach. Yeah, it was more of a, hey, like I know you inside out. Like whatever you need to know, just tell me. Whatever I need to know, just tell me. You don't have to hide it from me anymore, because I don't have any type of power anymore over you. So there is no reason for me to try to discipline you at all. So,
Has anyone had any negative cultures?
Yeah.
I've been at Starbucks most of my adult life. I've been at Kroger, which, you know, a grocery store, but I would say that there's really no culture at Kroger. It's really like, it's one of those atmospheres where you come to work, you clock in, you leave. There's no team building. There's no, you know, you're not bought in. You don't feel like you're part of, I mean, you literally feel like you're just being used, you know, to work, and you clock in, you clock out, you're just there for your check.
And
I
how
feel-
long did you last there?
I was a manager there for 5 years, 5.5 years. And then, I mean, I've worked at several grocery stores, but I was at Macaron and Grill, a restaurant, for 9 years. And now I've been at Starbucks 15.
I think for some people, like, it can depend on just like them personally, like what kind of culture they like. Some people might not like to communicate with anyone, but I feel like some people, they love that kind of connections and actually talking with their coworkers and like getting to know the customers. So I feel like it just depends on the person on how they might view culture. Like, whereas I feel like I wouldn't like that where I just check in and out. Like, I actually like to communicate, talk. And then for some people, they might just like that because they just get to do their work and they don't have to focus on anything else.
Yeah, and Tristan, I agree with that a lot. I mean, it's basically based on your personality and what type of culture you want to be part of. You know, what you want to work in. If you're going to be part of a culture that you don't like, then you're probably just going to be miserable in there. Like my roommate, he doesn't talk much, and before they had him, last job he was literally just talking to people all the time. And he hated it. It's jobs. Now all he does, he's a math major, so all he does now is sit down on the computer and plug in numbers, gets up and leaves the list, and he has to leave. He doesn't have to talk to anyone. All he has to do is show the reports, and he's done.
Yeah, and some people might like love that because they get to do what they love, and they're still like, for me, like, I need to move and like I need to talk to people. Like, I can't just be like, it's just like I can't, like, okay, I've been too quiet for too long type of deal. And some people, they might like that peace and quiet.
Do we think that leaders are able to shape culture?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
completely. Because,
You-
go ahead.
You could have you can have an organizational culture set in place, but you can also have a leader that totally diverts from that culture. And I think that's kind of where you get kind of that negative taste or that negative culture come into play. Because I don't think there's any real organization that tries to create a negative culture. At least not on purpose. I think it comes down to leadership.
You got
So,
that.
so it's definitely the leaders can absolutely shape the culture from how their leadership style is.
Could you guys say like culture could?
What'd you say?
Could you say like the culture can be subjective overall?
I think sometimes culture can be like a feeling, because as piggyback off what Patty was saying, I've been to Seattle many times, and I've been with people from Seattle. Like, the culture here in Dallas, Texas, is completely different than Seattle. And sometimes when I talk to friends and leaders, and they're like, the values of Starbucks didn't change. It's the people that are delivering that experience to you is who are distorting that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference, like, for example, here in Dallas, with the organizational culture and the leaders here is South Central has a history of pumping people out, and the higher ups keep getting promoted into really high level positions. And it kind of started with Roxanne. She was our RVP. Then she's over Europe. Now she's over Canada. Now she's over US. And her 4 predecessors have all gone up the chain. And it's like, everyone here is like, they just try to get the metrics and the numbers. And it's really less about that culture. And it's funny when I go to Seattle, and like, literally, there's everyone in that office treats store partners like we walk on water. And I'm like, here we're treated like we're the peasants. And it's interesting. Like, all they want to do is talk to us. They fight to get time with us, to learn from us, to talk to us and see how we're doing in Seattle. And it's totally different here. It's like everyone, I got 100 on Quasa one time, and my regional director, I was the first one in all of Texas to ever get 100 on this ridiculous health score. And literally, my regional director said, okay, that's good, but what are you doing about this number? I'm like, literally the first one in 20 years, no one had ever gotten in here. And I'm like, really? I literally was like, I'm done. I'm like, and then, my 10-year anniversary, I get an email, happy anniversary. I'm just like, where's my balloons? I'm like, I want some fanfare. So
I think that leaders are able to shape culture, but if I think it a lot up to the followers too, because especially if you work with a small group. I have only like 12 partners in my store. If we all talked about it and we decided that we didn't like something that our manager was doing, we could probably stop it from happening. Just because we've all worked there so long that what we say has like more power because it's more people, and then it gets to the manager and then it like kind of gets ruled out in a way. Do you guys know what I mean?
yeah.
Like we've had, there was a whole year or so where one of my managers was on medical leave twice and then was on leave because his mom passed away. And we kind of had to manage the store by ourselves. And it wasn't hard because we all knew what we were doing. But at that point, it didn't matter what the manager wanted anymore because he wasn't there. So we kind of took over and shaped our own culture. And it actually is the culture that our store is in now. And it's good. But then it kind of like our new manager that we had to come in didn't really have to change it that much. So
Do you
that was
feel like
interesting.
the new manager that came in could have easily switched it up though if they wanted to? Or do you
I
feel
don't.
like
And it's really good the way that it is. And I think that she sees that. So she kind of just rolled with it. And then she had to be accepted into our culture that we already had.
okay.
I think there's power in what you just said, Ashley, but also in like to play devil's advocate for a second is like,
You
so
gotta stick with the SM.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I've literally seen 90% of the times when a new manager takes over, there is collateral damage with turnover. And the reason why that is because the manager comes in and they do change the culture and then the people end up not liking it. So they abandon ship. So, but at the same point, I see what you're saying as far as like, cause oftentimes at Starbucks, we talk about there's no coffee culture in the store. And it's like, I can try and get partners to do coffee tastings and let's talk about coffee. But if they're not passionate about it, if they themselves don't own that, I can't make them like to do coffee tasting. So I see both sides of the coin that you're saying, but at the same point, like, sometimes the leader, the one thing they have that the followers don't is that legitimate power and that positional power because I literally had, when I took over my store, my district manager was like, you have 30 days to get rid of this person, manage them out. I want them gone.
Wow.
And I mean, it can come down to like, I can change things or just, make their life, horrible. I mean, I didn't do it, but I'm just saying, it was one of those, you either change the person or you change the person. So I worked with them. I'm like, look, this is what we need from you. These are your expectations. So like, this is what you're not doing. And sometimes all it takes is that conversation. But what I would say is that the leader can influence that culture. And sometimes people end up just leaving.
Oh,
And
they definitely can. Yeah. I wasn't saying that, but yeah.
Oh, I know.
yeah, no, to say a little bit more on that, I mean, basically, I just started working here at ASU football last year, but 2 years ago, they just hired Herm Edwards, the new coach here, and last year there was tons of kids who did not agree with his views, with the new coach's views, and they all just went online and entered into the transfer portal, meaning that they're going to be leaving the university and trying to go play somewhere else. He said, okay, hey, I wish you the best of luck. I tried to, change you and trying to tell you this is what's going to be happening, how this is going to work. And if you don't like it, you don't want to, if you want to leave, go ahead. Because the reason being it was they were going to bring in new players, younger, that were as good as them. And the ones who were seniors were expecting basically to start. And they started freshmen over those seniors. And people didn't like that, so they left. Even people who weren't even starting, they just left because they didn't like that idea. They thought, I put in my time, I deserve to start, and that's new culture now. If you can play, you play. Seniority does not matter. But
I was looking over sense making. Is that kind of what you were talking about, Ashley, as far as like taking a sense of what's going on, current situation? Or
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of something that, like, you had just had to do it. So as a store, we had to, we didn't really have an option to fail. So we just kind of stepped
Yeah.
up and then all managed to make it work.
yeah. But in that aspect, wouldn't it be that you had an absence of a leader, that you created that culture?
Yeah. And I think that,
How did you guys
I think
survive for a year?
what's that?
I said, how did you survive without a leader for a year? Crazy.
It was really, really hard. I worked a lot of opens to closes, actually. But
God.
Oh, I know.
I
it
know.
was rough.
Well, in that sense, the leader's absence kind of affected your culture.
It did, yeah. It also helped us all grow, though, as like our own like supervisor leaders too. So that was cool.
That's wild, but congrats to that you
I
guys
know,
grew
right?
from that.
Yeah.
What
And I
else?
was like, I can't leave because I have to go to school. So there was a lot of things that kept a lot of us there. So we just had to do it.
You have a manager now, though, right?
I do, yeah. She has 2 stores though, so
You never see her. She's
Oh,
dual
wow.
I
managing.
don't see her a lot.
I have 4 right now.
That
Wow.
is insane.
Maybe that's why Starbucks does the whole free schooling thing to retain employees and be like, okay, you can't go anywhere because I'm paying for your school.
Totally.
That's probably true.
I at least got you for 4 years.
That's probably true.
Hey, it's kind of smart. It's a good strategy.
Yep. It's very true.
We're at about 33 minutes, so just for a time check. But Nick, I wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to add any more to say.
Oh no, I was just saying I was agreeing. I forget now. So 10 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
I think it was about just changing the culture, and I think so because so there's like a lot of well, I don't want to go off on a rant here, but there's a lot of tedious work. Like we deal with a lot of freight orders, and it was basically it's a small company with a few people working, and our owner, to reward us for doing these big orders, would throw on occasion, maybe once a quarter, these little like carne asada type parties, and like we still had that respect for him, like we still viewed him as our boss and as the owner, but he was also able to show us like we could also have fun too, I guess, in a way, and reward us. I don't know.
Power with food.
Yeah, right.
It's my motivator.
Food
Taco.
Right.
is a great
Taco
power.
Tuesday.
Totally.
Okay, do you guys have anything else to share before you?
No.
Quick question though.
But-
When do we want to have our parts done?
Should we have it done by next? Because I think something's due on Thursday, or was that the interview?
Your interview is done on the 28th.
Okay, yeah, that's next Thursday. Let's see.
Where is the? How do I minimize this? I'm so old.
So let's see. This part is due by December 6th.
Oh,
For our. So I would say, let's see, December 6th is.
We have nothing due next week, then, right? Oh no, next Thursday is
We
your
have a
interview.
quiz.
Do we have a test or quiz due today or no?
No,
No, we get a break.
sort of. Next
And then
week is-
are we
Sort of.
uploading our full thing on like a Google Docs, or how are we organizing the whole thing? Or is it like an individual?
I guess if you want to email it, because it's supposed to be done in Excel. If you want to email it to me and Patty, you and I guys can coordinate when we're going to work together for ours.
Yeah, and you can actually upload it onto the files in the group. Within
Yeah.
the groups, you can upload your file there. I would say to give us enough time to kind of go through it and put it on the Excel and everything.
By the first. That gives
That like the first or second, I think.
Should we try and aim for? I just like to always have it in early. Should we like do maybe the 26th or like the 29th?
Yeah, let's try to aim early too. 'Cause
But that's
too-
that's
well, Thanksgiving's next week, and I'm gonna be full on food.